Welcome in hour number 2 of the lunch break. Appreciate you being here. Got you for one more hour. Then Jim Rome, 1 o'clock. Producer Dylan informed me in my ear during the break there. The Detroit Pistons plus 90,000 to win the NBA championship. I looked to see where it was at some other places, plus 60,000. So either way, a long shot for the Detroit Pistons, and that's the best win that the Suns have during this 6-3 stretch that they've been on since moving Bradley Beal to the bench. Now, I'm going to tell you why, on paper, it's about to get a lot harder for the Phoenix Suns. Because you think of everything that has happened to this team so far. The nice start to the year. Think just for a brief second, everybody. Just go with me on a journey to the beginning of the season and how well this team looked at the start of the year. And how we all thought the tales of redemption were going to turn out to be true. Now look at us. Now look at where we're at. The injuries that piled up, the inconsistent play that piled up, it was just a spiral downward for this team that has led them to today, where they are 21-21, 42 games into the season. They play again tomorrow. We are officially into the second half of the season for the Phoenix Suns. They've made a trade. They acquired Nick Richards. They're making moves. We are into the home stretch. I think you would say that this has been hard so far for the Phoenix Suns. Nothing has come easy for this team. I think being 21-21 is admirable considering how bad it has looked at times. They have fought tooth and nail to get to this point because it could be a lot worse. It could very easily be a lot worse. And I'm going to tell you that it's about to get harder. I don't want to say it's going to get worse, but it's going to get harder. One of my favorite websites, and Suns fans, you know it all too well. Love taking a peek at tankathon.com. Love just looking at a draft lottery or a draft order. Yeah, I just love it. Phoenix Suns right now, a lottery team, although they wouldn't get their pick. Their pick would go to Houston, but don't worry, lottery team right now. But you can look on Tankathon at the remaining strength of schedule the rest of the way. You can look at how difficult it's going to be for the Phoenix Suns. They have 40 games left on the docket here in 2024, 2025. And their strength of schedule, 4th hardest in the NBA. A 523 strength of schedule with 40 games left. The only teams that have a harder strength of schedule remaining than the Phoenix Suns are the Knicks, the Pelicans, and the Jazz. And let me just check something real quick. Just want to be sure. Utah and New Orleans, 3 and 4 in the draft order right now. So they're not really trying. They are embracing the fact that they have the hardest schedules the remainder of the way. Now, the Knicks are trying to win a championship there in the East. They don't love having that hard of a schedule, and we know the Suns certainly don't. The Suns still have 1 game remaining with the Cavs, 2 games remaining with the Thunder, 2 games with the Celtics, 3 with the Rockets, 3 with the Memphis Grizzlies, and 1 with the Knicks. That's who is described as the toughest opponents left for the Suns. They have 1 against Brooklyn as part of their easiest opponents. They'll take care of that here tomorrow night. They have a game against Washington. That's coming up here pretty soon. They've got 1 against Utah. And then they have 2 against Toronto, the Pelicans, and the Trailblazers. But a 523 winning percentage, strength of schedule, the rest of the way for the Phoenix Suns. And so you thought it was difficult now. You thought it was tough getting to 21-21. What about what you've seen recently tells you that strength of schedule is going to end? Let's put it all out there, everybody. It's not where I thought we were going to go today, but we're here. We'll do it. With that strength of schedule and the way this team has played, and you know how they play in big games against good teams. You saw it yesterday, and they were fully healthy yesterday. Why should I think for a second that this team can make the playoffs? Why shouldn't I think that this team is going to do exactly what it has been doing the entire year? And that is hover around 500, some days be in the playoffs, most days be out of the playoffs, and it is going to be down to the final game of the season to determine whether or not they are in. What about what you have seen? Somebody, please, 480-864-1060. Give me something. Give me some reason to be positive today. What about what you have seen combined with the fourth hardest schedule of the remainder of the season tells you that this is going to turn itself around? Are you waiting for Jimmy Butler to ride in on the white horse to save the team? Are you waiting for all of a sudden Bradley Beal to figure out how to play off the bench? Is all of a sudden the defense going to get better for the Phoenix Suns? What is it? What's going to change? Because whatever you think is going to change requires a heavy lift. Jimmy Butler, that's a heavy lift. Bradley Beal figuring it out off the bench, heavy lift. There's consistency problems with this team. And they've got 40 games left. They've played 42. And we are more than halfway through the season. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And we're going to talk about this in about 15 minutes from now, because in one specific aspect, this team showed us who they were yesterday, and it's why I don't even want to entertain Jimmy Butler. I want to entertain going in a different direction. I'll explain that in about 10 minutes from now. But when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. The Phoenix Suns have told you through 42 games they are a mediocre basketball team. Through 42 games, they have told you they are not on a championship level. They have told you that they probably aren't worth making the Jimmy Butler trade for, because that's not what saves this. They have shown to you that this is a failed experiment. 42 games in of this season, the entirety of last year, they have shown to you what you should believe. If you don't choose to believe it at this point, I don't know what to tell you. But it's not getting any easier. It's not going to all of a sudden lighten up. And the Suns are going to have a nice pocket on their schedule where we're going to all go, oh, it's okay. Just get to this point at 500 and boom, off to the races. Fourth hardest schedule the rest of the way with 40 games to go. Fourth hardest schedule. You expect me to believe this team is going to look at the fourth hardest schedule and embrace it and all of a sudden figure it out? Why? What about what you've seen recently tells you that that should be the case? The team is broken. The team isn't working. On full display for everybody to see yesterday. For all of us to take note of. For stories to be written in The Athletic. And if you missed it in hour number one, there's a great story in The Athletic talking about the Phoenix Suns, and it starts with Bradley Beal and his shoelaces. What am I supposed to do with that? What are you supposed to do with that? Is a team that's going to make a run in the Western Conference playoff talking about shoelaces? And listen, I know it's the NBA, and so things get weird, and there's weird stories, but we're talking about shoelaces. And you want me to believe that that team, who had a story written about them, talking about shoelaces impacting their defense, shoelaces impacting their ability to get into their offensive rhythm, you expect me to believe that that team, with the fourth hardest schedule in the second half, is going to all of a sudden find it? It's too little, too late. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. You dug yourself too big of a hole. You can't get out of this. Now, it's a little different because the Suns are just built inherently flawed. They're built the wrong way. We told you that yesterday here on the show. Cheap plug for the podcast if you missed it. Yes, we did a show yesterday. We were here. Nobody else was here. Producer Dylan and I, the only people in the building yesterday, but it's the day after the division round of the playoffs. What are we supposed to do? We got to be here for you all. So if you missed anything, go to the podcast feed. Just search The Lunch Break wherever you get your podcasts, and both hours of the show are podcasted. But we told you this yesterday. The Pistons win showed you that the team was flawed. It showed you that the team can do it with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. You just needed a better supporting cast. So when you made the decision to trade all of the money on your books to acquire Bradley Beal, and you committed yourself to that contract with the no-trade clause for as long as you did, you sunk yourself. You dug this mess. You dug yourself into being a second apron team. And I saw a bunch of people on social media yesterday say, you don't know how the salary cap works if you're saying that the Phoenix Suns would be better served to use that $50 million elsewhere. They couldn't do that because they traded for it. Yeah, okay. But that is some revisionist history because you know what they did in order to take on Bradley Beal's money? They traded Chris Paul's money and the $28 million. So the argument that I'm making and the argument that a lot of people are making is you didn't have to make that move. You could have used the contracts and the picks and the assets that you had when you had way more flexibility, and you could have gotten more that you could have moved, the draft picks that you could have moved, and you could have made your team more well-rounded. So no, you couldn't have then taken that $50 million and spent it elsewhere, but you traded Chris Paul and a bunch of future first-round picks in order to get Bradley Beal. You don't think you could have sent Chris Paul and some future firsts to another team and got maybe one or two players that could have helped you, that would have cost less, that wouldn't have you in these financial situations that you find yourself in? 42 games in, 21-21, fourth hardest schedule the rest of the way. I don't want to be another oracle like I was yesterday, but I can see into the future. This doesn't end well.